Hello everyone and welcome to Zandvoort. It's halftime here in the Netherlands and we are excited because we had an amazing race yesterday and we're looking forward to a very exciting one today. It's a very challenging racetrack here in Zandvoort, but one man who's really handling it so well is Gary Pavitt. That is pretty amazing. 2 poles in a row, and yesterday you won, so let's see if we can do that in a row too. What's your feeling?
Yeah, obviously we have a great chance starting from pole, and we have a fantastic car. The car's been great all weekend and it was even better in qualifying today than yesterday. So really looking forward to the race, but we know it's always a tough race here on the car, on the tyres. Very easy to make a mistake and a high chance of a safety car. So a lot can happen, but we're in a perfect position and we've got a very good chance. And yeah, let's see what we can do. Really looking forward to it.
Me too. Thank you so much, Gary. Best of luck for the race. And now to the commentator.
Yes, Gary Pavitt has put himself in a perfect position to make it 2 out of 2 this weekend. He's done it with regards to qualifying. All he needs to do is do it with the race now, but 55 minutes plus 1 lap. And as he says, he's very grounded in that. A lot can happen here on this 4.3 kilometre circuit, which wends its way through the sand dunes here on the Netherlands coast. Welcome to Zandvoort. 13 turns, 4 of them left-handers, 9 of them right-handers. A notoriously difficult circuit, just 20 minutes or so from Schiphol Airport on which to make an overtaking move. So thousands of spectators have lined the dunes. There are so many natural vantage points around this 4.3 kilometre circuit from which you can see some great race action. And that's what we expect. It was a challenging race yesterday, that's for sure. And as Gary has suggested, there's always a high possibility of a safety car. So we will see. The grid, as always, a packed place as the cars are about to get underway. It was very good from a manufacturer's point of view qualifying this morning because we have Pavitt, Eng and Rast representing all 3 manufacturers. Robin Freins had a torrid time of it, the local driver, because an electrical component problem during free practice and also in qualifying meant that he was not able to put himself as far up the grid as he would like to. So Robin Freins then unable to replicate the qualifying pace that he had yesterday, and some of our marshals really enjoying the sunshine and the sounds of Zandvoort here, this part of Europe, having had a brilliant weather time of it. Timo Glock, his quality time of 1:31.233 then means that he's not as far up the order as he would like to be. So as we bask in the glorious sunshine here in the Netherlands, we're basking in glorious sunshine across this part of Europe and the UK as well. It's the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and the DTM is represented there by Frank Bieler and also Ricky Collard for Audi and BMW. Just shy of 200,000 people make their way to Goodwood every year, and Ricky Collard then, who often sits alongside us here in comms, putting the BMW M4 through its paces at this legendary place, and Ricky putting on a great show for the fans, as indeed so too did Frank Bieler. So you can see him there kicking up the dust and using every single centimetre of tarmac available to him. Ricky is one of the junior drivers, and this is Frank Bieler, who will forgive me for saying he's not one of the junior drivers. Former DTM star Frank Bieler then in the Audi up the hill at Goodwood, and of course with the next round of the DTM to come at Brands Hatch on the 11th and 12th of August. A fantastic showpiece there at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Please come and join us at Brands Hatch in the UK, 11th and 12th of August. And thanks to Ricky and for Frank for displaying those DTM cars at the Festival of Speed. This is Jamie Green, one of the British drivers that will be performing at Brands Hatch, but before then he's got to perform here in Zandvoort, and Jamie Green is going from P15 on the grid. So work to do for Jamie Green from P15 on the grid, but the British star knows how to fight his way up the order, however difficult it might be to overtake here at Zandvoort. And Joel Eriksson had a torrid time of it because he went off in FP. That caused the team to have to do a lot of work before quali, but he did get out there. Bernd Mailander, of course, the Formula 1 safety car driver, is here this weekend at Zandvoort.
And I'm here with a former DTM driver and Formula 1 safety car driver, Bernd Mailander. We're very excited to see you here. Haven't seen you here in a while. So what do you think of the atmosphere here? I mean, perfect sunshine, full house. What do you think?
Well, it's the best holiday place ever, I have to say, Zandvoort. No, it's absolutely great, always. Also, when it's raining, it's very special circuit, a very difficult one. I think all the drivers, they love it, and especially under this weather condition, it's even better, because during the day we can enjoy racing, and late afternoon, evening, you're on the beach, so perfect, for me especially.
Sounds very good, and we've got a very mixed qualifying result with Mercedes, then followed by BMW and then Audi, so what do you expect for the race?
Well, from the Mercedes point, should be, it's definitely not so easy today than yesterday. Yesterday they've been, I think, on the first two rows. Right now, Gary Paffett, it's on pole position, but it's very important for them for the championship. I really hope that we will see a quite interesting race with over the whole distance with a lot of changes. So we'll see. I'm here for the sport, and we'll be really happy for Gary if he can win again.
We're all here for the action. So thank you so much, Bernd, and back to the commentator.
We are all here for the action. Well said, Bernd Mailander then. And here comes the starting grid for race number 10. And pole position, the second one of the weekend for Gary Paffett. Can he make it the second win? Alongside him, the DTM rookie is Philipp Eng. René, Rast and Pascal Wehrlein are on the second row of the grid, going from P3 and P4. Then we find Paul di Resta and Mike Rockefeller. Paul di Resta flying high in the championship, being led by Gary Paffett at the moment. Bruno Spengler is P7, and Augusto Farfus is alongside him for P8. Then we find Edo Mortara, who's the last driver to take two pole positions back in 2016. Alongside Mortara is Lucas Auer. Then we find Daniel Juncker-Deyer and Marco Wittmann. It's Loic Duval and Joel Eriksson going from P13 and P14, completing the 7th row of the grid for this race with Jamie Green and Nico Muller. And then we find the BMW driver, Timo Glock, and the very unlucky Robin Freins, who, with an electronic problem with his car, wasn't able to put in a very hot lap during qualifying. So as the helicopter shot reveals how this circuit snakes through the dunes here, you can see it's two Mercedes at the top of the team standings at the moment. The Motorsport Petronas team and the Silver File Energy Mercedes team ahead of BMW Team RMR in P3 in the team's standings at the moment. And that is Edoardo Mortara. As I said, it was back in 2016 he took two P1s in qualifying, and that was at Budapest. He won the race 1 but didn't win race 2. So he's replicated what Gary Paffett has done this weekend. Augusto Farfus, qualifying time of 1:39.42 gives him P8 on the grid for the Brazilian star Augusto Farfus. And then we see former champion Bruno Spengler, champion, of course, on BMW's return to the DTM. A 1:30.908 gives him P7 on the grid. So Bruno Spengler then, whose best result thus far came at the last race at Norrisring, where he took a P4. Mike Rockefeller in car number 99 will be going from P6 on the grid for Audi. Mike has taken a podium P2 in the opening weekend at Hockenheim and hasn't been able to replicate that success for the rest of the season so far. And here is Paul di Resta then, who probably will feel slightly disappointed with qualifying, given how far up the grid he was yesterday. It's a P5 start for the British star Paul di Resta, who goes in that number 3 car, of course, has won and took that win at Hungaroring, first race. Just a few weekends ago. So the Paul di Resta car then, car number 3, the former Formula 1 star. His Mercedes brandmate Gary Paffett having secured 2 pole positions this weekend. This is Pascal Wehrlein going from P4, so completing the 2nd row of the grid, a 1:30.774 for Pascal Wehrlein in the numbered 94 car, who at one point during quali was off and through the Tarzan turn, and the car had to be vacuumed of all its gravel. René Rast goes from P3 on the grid, so good qualifying from champion René Rast then. He goes from P3, and rookie into the DTM Championship last year and rookie into the DTM Championship for this year is Philipp Eng, who has done a brilliant job and put his BMW P2 with that 1:30.671. There is Philipp Eng, and there is his car. So what can he do from P2 on the grid? So this is Zandvoort, some 17,000 residents, 21 DTM races since 2001. It was Timo, Glock and Mike Rockenfeller that took the wins last year. Audi lead the win table, having taken 10 over the course of DTM's history at this circuit that wends its way through the dunes. Some fantastic scenery and some really vibrant local towns to enjoy, and Zandvoort being very much one of them. And as Bert Mylander has suggested, you can enjoy the race action during the day and enjoy the beach and the North Sea in the afternoon, evening. Row 1 of the grid, it's Gary Paffett, P1, Philip Eng alongside René, Rast and Pascal Wehrlein. Then it is Paul de Resta and Mike Rockenfeller and Bruno Spengler and Augusto Farfus and Edo Mortara and Lucas Au, ahead of Daniel Juncadea, Marco Wittmann, Loic Duval, Joel Eriksson, Jamie Green, Nico Muller, Timo Glock and Robin Freins. Robin Freins being the local driver here in that Audi RS5 DTM, going from P18 on the grid. So Uli Fritz then is the team principal for Mercedes-Benz, and very pleased with his brand's performance here at Zandvoort this weekend, that's for sure. But of course, an awful lot can happen come the next 55 minutes plus 1 lap. It's down to this man to convert that P1 position in qualifying into the race win. Certainly did that yesterday. The offset grid here at Zandvoort means that he starts on the outside, and the inside line is the one that's needed going into the Tarzan turn, which is turn number 1, which Philip Eng, although he's a car length behind Gary Paffett, he is on the inside line. Gary nailed the start yesterday and will be hoping and expecting to do exactly the same today. So the grid girls are leaving the grid now, and we are just a few moments away from the cars being released on their formation lap. And there you can see from our helicopter a great shot of how the cars line up on the grid for this race 2 across this weekend. In the driver's standings then, following qualifying, because points awarded for the top 3 places in qualifying, Gary Paffett on 130 points, Paul de Resta on 106, and Timo Glock then on 100. Still a lot of racing to come. We reach halfway in the proceedings for DTM for 2018. We're off to the UK next. Brands Hatch, 11th and 12th of August. Then it's Misano, Nürburgring, Spielberg and Hockenheim. Philip Eng then, the man that's going from P2. He's in the final stages of preparation before the start of the race. It should be noted that Paffett's pole time was a full 4/10 quicker than Philip Eng's P2 time. 4.3 kilometers, 55 minutes plus 1 lap, and as you can see, it's a lovely 25 degrees with the track temperature just hovering under 48 degrees at the moment. There's always a bit of wind here at Zandvoort, which means some of the sand off the dunes is always blown onto the racing surface, which makes it very, very difficult to contend with at times. It is a challenging old school circuit without acres of tarmac runoff area. Lots of gravel traps, and if this track bites you, you stay bitten, it has to be said. Philip Eng then, that BMW driver going from P2 on the grid. He's had a couple of podium P3 places this season. Can he improve on that here at Zandvoort? Well, he's put himself in a very good position to try and do so, going from P2 on the grid. But there is our pole sitter, Gary Paffett, who's taken 3 wins in the season so far and is in a dominant position at the top of the Drivers' Championship. So the cars start up there and roar into life, ready to do battle for 55 minutes plus 1 lap. Engineers leave the grid, and the cars will be released for their formation lap in some 35 seconds time from now. So Paffett from Eng, Rast, Wehrlein, de Resta, Rockenfeller, Spengler, Farfus, Mortara, Auer occupying the first 5 rows of the grid. 30 seconds then before the formation lap is underway, as the marshal indicates. And race 2 of the DTM weekend here in the sand dunes at Zandvoort is just a few seconds from getting underway. Drivers will use the formation lap to try and generate some temperature into those tyres ahead of the start of race number 2 for the weekend. So, pinpoint accurate in terms of time. The cars are released and the lights go green now. Here we go. Race 10 of 20 is about to get underway. The cars are off on their formation lap. So through Tarzan turn, which is turn number 1, banked the right-hander, before you then head up and start to climb just a little bit uphill towards turn number 2. And then downhill for the left-hander, around by the paddock area here at Zandvoort. We're tracking the Gary Paffett car as he makes his way up now towards turn number 4, gently climbing uphill now, and as you can see, Gary weaving from side to side to generate some temperature into the tyres. Philipp Eng, the driver that will be starting alongside him. Then we find René Rast and Pascal Wehrlein, the graphics indicating the grid on screen for you. Paul di Resta and Mike Rockenfeller going from row 3. Then it's Bruno Spengler and Augusto Farfus. Before we find the Edo Mortara Mercedes-Benz alongside the Mercedes-Benz of Lucas Auer, completing row 5 of the grid. Daniel Juncadella, the Spanish driver, has Marco Wittmann for company on the 6th row of the grid, and on row 7 it's Loic Duval and Joel Eriksson, ahead of Jamie Green, Nico Muller, and then Timo Glock and Robin Frijns. This is Pascal Wehrlein, and that is Paul di Resta, Mike Rockenfeller, and Bruno Spengler. There as they cross one of the sector lines for sector 2 and head down towards what is the Audi S, this turn 10. We're on board the splitter cam with Gary Paffett then. Blipper throttle now heading up towards turn number 12. Uli Fritz for Mercedes-Benz, the team principal of the Mercedes-Benz DTM concern. Watches Gary come through the Arie Luyendyk turn, which is the final turn, turn number 13, which leads you back onto the start-finish straight. So formation lap very nearly completed, and the tension building in the Audi garage as well. So flicking out the back end of the car. Both Gary Paffett and Philipp Eng doing exactly the same, as they are guided by their race engineers to be absolutely perfectly situated within their grid box. So final revs of the engine then ahead of the start of this race, 55 minutes plus 1 lap, in with the BMW garages as well. And once Robin Frijns is into position, we should get the green flag from the marshal at the rear to say that the start sequence can get underway. We will light up 5 red lights, and when the lights all go out, we will be away and racing. Stand by, DTM Race 2 here at Zandvoort is about to get underway. So quite some pause then following the green flag from the marshal at the rear, but now we get the lights. 3 red lights, 4, 5. When the lights go out, we will be away and racing. Let's go racing. Philipp Eng will try and squeeze out Gary Paffett going into the Tarzan turn, but Paffett's got a brilliant start. René Rast trying to squeeze Pascal Wehrlein. But a perfect textbook start from Gary Paffett means he converts that P1 qualifying position into the race lead, and does a great job from the outside of the grid, and is in P1. Timo Glock right on the back of the pack, as you can see, with Robin Frijns just ahead of him and Nico Muller as well. Lucas Auer's got some company with Loic Duval and also Jamie Green and Joel Eriksson. Jamie Green squeezed out onto the grass there by Joel Eriksson, but manages to put the car back onto the tarmac, all okay. So it's Paffett from Eng, then it's Rast, and then it is Pascal Wehrlein, as for the first time of asking the cars make their way down to the back part of the circuit here, which offers some terrific views of the track as it unwinds through the dunes here at Zandvoort. And already Paffett building up quite a lead over Philipp Eng. Bear in mind the drivers have a mandatory pit stop to take during the course of the 55 minutes plus 1 lap. They can take it whenever they like during the race duration, but every driver has to come in. So Paffett really stretching his legs, and he's so quick. He's almost a second quicker through the sectors so far than Philipp Eng, and you can see that play out on the screen because the gap that Gary Paffett has at the front is extraordinary. On board with René Rast we were momentarily as he's chasing down the Philipp Eng car, which is running in P2. But it is notoriously difficult to overtake here at the Zandvoort circuit, and René Rast decides to pit very early on. So coming in before even 1 lap is completed. So now we go back to the order of Parfit Eng, and then it's Pascal Wehrlein who's elevated into P3. Nico Müller chooses to come in as well to take his mandatory pit stop. So what René Rast is hoping to be able to do here is undercut those like Philipp Eng ahead of him when they choose to come in for their mandatory pit stop. So Rast and Müller are the first to come in and have the tyres changed. Good stop there from the René Rast team, 7.1 seconds from Audi Sport Team Rosberg, but 6.3 for Nico Müller. So the AB team doing a good job with the Nico Müller pit stop. So they're back out now, and of course we'll have clear track ahead of them, as indeed has Gary Parfit. Of course, all cars have DRS available to them, but as I was saying to Milan Doncha that was alongside us in comms yesterday, DRS here at Zandvoort, probably one of the more least effective tracks, if you like, for a DRS, because overtaking is so jolly difficult. So they're queuing up behind Philipp Eng, who is in P2. As you can see, he's got Pascal Wehrlein and Paul de Resta and Bruno Spengler for company, just ahead of Mike Rockefeller, Augusto Farfus, Edo Mortara, Marco Wittmann and Daniel Juncadella. The Spanish driver rounds out the top 10 in the race so far. So Wehrlein now, off the back of the Aeri Lyondike tyre, will try and get close enough to Philipp Eng. Philipp Eng protects the inside line. Pascal Wehrlein's going to have to be brave and do it all the way around the outside of the Tarzan turn. A lock-up from Philipp Eng if Pascal Wehrlein can get underneath him now, potentially, but he's not able to do so because Philipp Eng makes sure the door is firmly closed. Daniel Juncadella has come in for his mandatory pit stop. But you can see the two Mercedes-Benz cars are champing at the bit to try and get past the BMW of Philipp Eng, but at the moment they are being denied. So Philipp Eng doing a good job in terms of defending his P2 position. Daniel Juncadella will rejoin now. René Rast, of course, been in for his mandatory pit stop, and his tyres should be up to temperature now. Until the rest of the cars have done their mandatory pit stop, we'll see whether the undercut that they've tried to do with René Rast to put him ahead of Philipp Eng has worked. This was Wehrlein then, and that was the lock-up from Philipp Eng, but good control from Philipp Eng. I thought he might run wide here, which would have now would have allowed Pascal Wehrlein to get underneath him, but it didn't happen that way. So as the cars scream past, there is Joel Eriksson with Loic Duval ahead of him. We're on board with Mike Rockefeller, who's running in P6 at the moment. He's got the BMW of Bruno Spengler ahead of him. And in the space of but a few laps, Gary Parfit has opened up a 2.3 second margin over Philipp Eng. So doing a brilliant job. He's able to focus on each and every lap because he's got no one ahead of him, and he's certainly not being threatened as Pascal Wehrlein again all over the back of Philipp Eng, trying to find a way past, but what he doesn't want to do is leave himself vulnerable to an overtake from Paul de Resta also, because whilst they both drive for the Mercedes-Benz brand, Paul de Resta will certainly want to try and get past Pascal Wehrlein's car if he possibly can. So the three drivers that have pitted were René Rast and Nico Müller on lap 1 and Daniel Juncadella on lap 2. So Eng then in the BMW is sufficiently quick to deny any opportunity to Pascal Wehrlein or Paul de Resta to come past as we get a replay of the start. Jamie Green putting himself between the cars of Loic Duval and Joel Eriksson. You can see diving right through the middle. And it was just an absolutely brilliant start by Gary Parfit, and a brilliant getaway as well from Jamie Green. He finds himself in P13 at the moment. Joel Eriksson and Loic Duval having managed to get themselves back past the Jamie Green Audi. As you can see, he got hung out to dry a bit there. So both Loic Duval and they were advantaged a bit by Lucas Auer, because you can see from that heli shot there in the replay of the start. Back to where we're at the front of the pack. Well, not quite the front, because there is our race leader, Gary Parfit, now 3.4 seconds to the good. Mike Rockefeller chooses to come in. It's actually 4.4 seconds now as Gary Parfit crosses the timing line. And Pascal Wehrlein goes for an outside move now, but Philipp Eng has got sufficient momentum that he's able to block out that overtake from Pascal Wehrlein, and Paul de Resta looking very lively behind him as well. Mike Rockefeller has come in, Jamie Green has come in, and so too has Timo Glock. So 6 drivers have either been in or are in for their mandatory pit stops right now. There you can see the Jamie Green car. Mike Rockefeller's stop has been completed in 6.4 seconds. And the Jamie Green team go to work on his car in 7 seconds, and he is released. And Timo Glock for BMW coming out as well. Once the cars are released from the mandatory pit stop, they're on cold tyres. Recollections of Matthias Ekstrom coming out on cold tyres and then finding himself in the gravel at the Tarzan turn, just carrying too much speed, and grip afforded by the cold Hankook tyres was not sufficient to keep his car on the tarmac. So P4 it is for Paul de Resta at the moment, who's continuing to chase both Pascal Wehrlein and Philipp Eng. And at the moment, these three are just breaking away a little bit from that pack that includes Bruno Spengler, Augusto Farfus and Edo Mortara, who are running in P5, 6 and 7. So on the back of that pack, running in P12 at the moment is Robin Freins, the local driver who had that electrical failure. And in comes Paul de Resta now, so too Bruno Spengler. So the HWA team will go to work on the Paul de Resta car, and the RBM team for BMW on Bruno Spengler. So in then Paul de Resta. We run the clock on the de Resta car. And he is released from the pit lane. So too is Bruno Spengler. 7.3 seconds for Paul de Resta. 6.4 for Bruno Spengler. So out they come now. And this is René Rast, who of course pitted very early on, out on his own, leading the pack of cars that have been in for their mandatory pit stops, ahead of Paul de Resta. So the race order then, Pafit Eng, then it's Wehrlein, Farfus and Mortara. And this then, a very brave move from the number 23 car of Daniel Juncker-Deyer all the way around the outside of the BMW of Bruno Spengler, because Bruno Spengler is on cold tyres and gets mugged by Mike Rockefeller and potentially Nico Muller as well. Told it's like driving on ice until those tyres have got up to their operating temperature. Can Nico Muller manage to get past the BMW as well? Bruno Spengler has probably generated sufficient temperature into those tyres now to hold off the charge from the Audi driver Nico Muller, who found himself in the wall yesterday. But no, here comes Muller going into turn number 10. Good move, he does make it work. So great overtake there from Nico Muller, who does manage to put himself ahead of the Bruno Spengler BMW. So another lap gets completed and put in the book, with our race leader Gary Paffett extending his lead, as you can see, to some 5.7 seconds according to the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. That increases now to 5.978, which is marginally different to the gap that we've got on our timing screens, which is saying 5.5, but we're splitting hairs somewhat. Gary Paffett has got a remarkable lead already. Look, you can't even see Philipp Eng until the very end of this shot, as he now comes into the picture with Pascal Wehrlein and Augusto Farfus running up in P4 now, but of course that is a pre-pit stop. So Paffett then, the leader, and as you can see, he's some 35 seconds ahead of René Rast, and that's with regards to the pit stop. So he's got 35 seconds of margin within which to come in and do his mandatory pit stop before the challenge from René Rast. Where the challenge will come, of course, will be that René Rast will be on tyres that are up to temperature and Gary Paffett will be on cold tyres. But as we saw yesterday, he certainly knows how to drive the car on those cold tyres and prevent any overtake from those cars behind him. Marco Wittmann then comes in for his mandatory pit stop now, which means that we have 8 of the cars that have been in. And Marco Wittmann comes in now, and the RMG team go to work on the Marco Wittmann car.
Watch the white line.
3 second stop for Marco Wittmann. who had a great time of it at the last round of DTM at Norris Ring, where he took a P3 and also a win. So he comes out just alongside Mike Rockefeller and ahead of Nico Müller, but Müller should be able to go around him with no problems whatsoever, because, of course, his tyres are perfectly okay and up to temperature following his stop on the first lap of the race. So Pavic continuing to extend his lead at the front, and here Bruno Spengler, a BMW brandmate of Marco Wittmann, will be the next to try and get past the two-time DTM champions car. And at the moment, Marco Wittmann seems to be able to drive that car really well and defend his position, and making it very difficult for Bruno Spengler to find a way by. It's notoriously difficult here at Zandvoort to inch away past, that's for sure, and Marco Wittmann is not going to make it easy for him. Despite the fact they are brand mates, Marco Wittmann in a better position in terms of the Drivers' Championship and therefore wants to bank every single point that he possibly can. So crosses the Sector 2 line and slows now for turn number 10. And Jamie Green beginning to harry Bruno Spengler, as in comes Augusto Farfus. He was running in that P4 position.
6 to 7.
And the Augusto Farfus car is in. The RMG team go to work on that. Slow stop, to be fair. 8.5 seconds for Augusto Farfus. On those cold tyres then. Augusto Farfus returns to the track. And Bruno Spengler now under real pressure from Jamie Green. A little touch between the two of them as Jamie Green, going through turn 3, tries to get the better of Bruno Spengler. Absolutely welded together here, the BMW and the Audi, the BMW bank car of Bruno Spengler. And then the Hoffman Group all-orange Audi of Jamie Green. Jamie really trying through turn number 3 to get the better of Bruno Spengler, but it was denied in the end, and there was a touch between the two of them. Certainly nothing malicious. Just real race action from DTM here at Zandvoort. So for the moment, Spengler is able to see off the charge for Jamie Green. So as they head into the next turn, Jamie Green again gets ever closer. As in now has come Philipp Eng. This needs to be a good stop. Not the quickest in the world, it has to be said, but Philipp Eng in 7.4 seconds from the RBM team. And is back out now, but back out on cold tyres. So there is Di Resta, there is Philipp Eng weaving from side to side with Daniel Juncadella right behind him. And he makes the car as wide as possible to try and protect his position through turn number 3, but he'll fall prey surely to the Mercedes-Benz of Daniel Juncadella and also potentially to the Audi of Mike Rockefeller as well. So Rocky trying to find a way past. As we've said and repeated, it's really difficult here on this undulating nature of the circuit here at Zandvoort to try and find a way through. And Mike Rockefeller has so far been denied. Will he make a move, try and go past going into turn number 10 or even before then? And so Rocky all over the back of the car, and Nico Müller also wanting to take advantage as race leader Gary Pavic comes into the pit lane now. Had a huge margin over anyone else, and therefore, as the HWA team don't do a particularly quick stop for Gary Pavic, he should have enough in hand as he comes out of the pit lane now. The trouble will be with René Rast, and Rast then, the strategic move from Audi means that Rast gets ahead of Gary Pavic. Rast on tyres that have been brought up to temperature. Bear in mind, came in on lap 1. Gary Pavic leaving it much later to come in and built a huge margin of time, to be fair, between himself and Philipp Eng. And there is Paul Di Resta. Now, Di Resta also has been in and had his tyres changed, so he'll try and reel in the Gary Paffett car ahead of him. And there is the Daniel Juncadella car before we get back to Philip Eng now. And on board with Mike Rockefeller, who continues to be held behind the Philip Eng BMW. And Robin Freins, who's had a torrid time of it today with an electrical or electronic component failure in his car. It looks like the car has failed once again. So Robin Freins then is potentially going to be out of this race. So heartbreak for the local driver Robin Freins, who has to park up the car. So René Rast then is effectively the race leader. And then it's Gary Paffett, and then it is Paul Di Resta. So yellow flag then through that section of the circuit, which is turns 10 and 11. Just wondering where Robin Freins has put that car, whether it's far enough away to prevent any problems. Sure enough, we've got a green flag already, so the Robin Freins car will have been taken to safety. So the strategy from Audi with regards to René Rast, clearly the right one at the moment. But we know what pace Mercedes-Benz has got here. But bear in mind, René Rast doing a good job in qualifying as well with pace, that's for sure. We're on board with Mike Rockefeller once again. This is P10, though do bear in mind Pascal Wehrlein, Edo Mortara, Loic Duval and Joel Eriksson still to come in for their mandatory stops. A great sound and shot there being on board with Mike Rockefeller. So we go back to having that yellow flag in the turn 10 section, the Audi S section of the track, which is one of the places where we have seen some overtakes. Well, clearly that's not going to happen with the yellow flags being shown in that particular section of the circuit. And we're on board with René Rast then. And there is Gary Paffett and Paul Di Resta. And this is where it all happened then. So Paffett out of the pit lane, absolutely powerless to do anything about the hard-charging René Rast, who of course had come in on lap 1. The advantage might come, though, to Paffett towards the end of the race, when of course he will have significantly fresher tyres than René Rast. So at the moment, Rast is trying to bank as much time as he can. He's 2.3 seconds to the good over Gary Paffett at the moment. Still Mike Rockefeller behind Philip Eng, and so too Nico Muller. Jamie Green remains behind Bruno Spengler. It was through this turn, Tarzan turn, that Jamie had a go at Bruno Spengler a couple of laps or so ago, but was unable to get past. 35 minutes plus 1 lap of the race remaining, so an awful lot can still happen between now and the checkered flag. So Wehrlein, Mortara, Duval and Eriksson are those that have not pitted yet, and Jamie Green now has really turned up the wick on Bruno Spengler, virtually welded together as he goes every which way behind the Bruno Spengler BMW to try and provoke a small error from Bruno Spengler. It's all it would take, and then Viper-like Jamie Green would be through. But wherever he places the car to try and make a move on Bruno Spengler, Bruno is wise to it and is defending very, very aggressively as well, which is his right to do to protect that position. And Jamie got to find a way past, and at the moment has not been able to do so. So that is just how close they are getting. A couple of turns left. I wonder whether Jamie will maintain his closeness to the BMW around these 2 turns and then set up another move potentially going into turn number 1, the Tarzan turn. Let's see if that happens now. DRS gets opened on the Jamie Green car. Right on Bruno Spengler. Let's follow them into turn 1. Again, Bruno Spengler is just able to put the car right in the middle of the track and deny Jamie Green the opportunity to go inside or outside. And you can see on the pit wall how that is being discussed. Wherever Jamie tries to find a way past the BMW, it's just not happening at the moment. And Lucas Auer is lurking behind. Incidentally, Pafford has just set the fastest first sector of anyone in the race with a 40.577. Comparing that to the René Rast first sector, it's a full 0.3 quicker. It's one to bear in mind, perhaps, with regards to what I was saying towards the end of the race, when, of course, his tyres will have more life left in them than those of René Rast. So, Jamie Green then. This is the battle which will eventually play out for the final points-paying position once Wehrlein, Mortara, Duval and Ericsson have gone in for their mandatory pit stops, because Spengler at the moment is P14, Jamie Green is P15, but we have, as I say, 4 of those cars to come in for their mandatory pit stop yet, and very, very disappointed Robin Freins then, who as the walk back to the paddock. Such a shame. The local driver that finished P5 yesterday is not going to finish the race, as Daniel Juncadella has managed to hold off Philip Eng for lap after lap after lap, and there is the Robin Freins car, which is taking no further part in the race today. So Daniel Juncadella running in P8, which of course will be P4. And then Philip Eng came in on lap 9 for his mandatory pit stop, which didn't really work. People work on the strategy and when to pit and when not to pit. Audi very much rolling the dice with René Rast coming in on lap 1, as now side by side go Philip Eng and Daniel Juncadella. And Philip Eng does manage to put himself past Daniel Juncadella, and so too in that overtake it left the door open for Mike Rockefeller to come through as well. So Danny Juncadella losing out on 2 places. Could it be 3? Because Nico Muller is also looking pretty lively behind the Mercedes of Daniel Juncadella. But now you can see Philip Eng and Mike Rockefeller have been released from the Daniel Juncadella car. They are able to escape up the road, and it's Nico Muller and Augusto Farfus and Marco Wittmann lining up behind the Daniel Juncadella Mercedes now. Nico Muller with the inside line going towards turn number 1. So too Augusto Farfus and also Marco Wittmann. So Daniel Juncadella on the outside now, but that becomes the inside for the next turn. If he's able to remain absolutely committed here, he might be able to squeeze out Augusto Farfus, but he's unable to do so. So Augusto goes through. Is Marco Wittmann going to have the same luck? Going to have to be brave here, where you can so be squeezed out onto the dirt, but Marco Wittmann goes through on Daniel Juncadella as well. So Daniel Juncadella losing out on a huge number of places then, as they all go past him. So the number 23 Daniel Juncadella car, of course, took his podium at the Norris Ring in race 2, and this is how close Philip Eng and Daniel Juncadella got. There was a little nerf there from Philip Eng. Nothing intentional. It was just, as you can see, he ran a bit wide and caught a bit of the dirt, and that meant that the car just running into the side of Daniel Juncadella's Mercedes-Benz. So on board with Mike Rockefeller now. Edo Mortara, incidentally, has come in to take his mandatory pit stop, and we're on board now, the rear-looking camera, as Edo Mortara comes in for his mandatory pit stop now. So the team go to work on replacing the Hankook rubber, and in 6.8 seconds, which is one of the better Mercedes times we've seen for a pit stop, Edo Mortara is released back onto the racetrack. So Mortara then putting himself alongside Marco Wittmann. And right behind Edo Mortara now is going to be his fellow Mercedes brand mate, Daniel Juncadella, as you can see. Great to have this rear splitter cam looking back at the Daniel Juncadella car. We're on board with Edo Mortara making his way through turn number 3, climbing uphill now, the long stretch down towards turns 4, 5, and then turn 6, right at the back end of this roller coaster circuit here at Zandvoort. So the nominal race leader now is Pascal Wehrlein, but he is at the head of a 3-car pack, which has got to come in for their mandatory stops. Pascal Wehrlein, Luc Duval, and Joel Eriksson. Now, is this going to help Jamie Green in his quest to try and find a way past Bruno Spengler? So every single centimetre that Daniel Juncadella does puts more pressure on Edo Mortara, who of course is on those colder tyres, but Edo Mortara seems to have seen off the charge and challenge from Daniel Juncadella, who now acts as a bit of a wingman for him. And there is Lucas Au, the young Austrian driver, who's not had the best of times of it here at Zandvoort this weekend, and he's hoping to get his season back on track at Brands Hatch. So the gap between René Rast and Gary Paffett then. And on board, it's just great to hear that sound as they run down towards the next turn. Love being on board and love seeing those shots and hearing the sounds of the engines. So Jamie Green then, ever frustrated behind the BMW of Bruno Spengler. And there you can see a lock-up from Jamie Green from a heli shot, and that has allowed Lucas Au to get a lot closer to him. You can't help but feel it's probably frustration from Jamie Green, who's tried so very hard to get around that BMW of Bruno Spengler, but Bruno doing a great job in defending and placing the car exactly where Jamie Green wants it not to be. So on board with René Rast then, who is effectively the race leader, and last time of asking had a couple of seconds over Gary Paffett. And as they cross the timing line now, it's 2.4 seconds between Gary Paffett and René Rast, who is leading the race. So the strategy from Audi working really well and putting that Audi ahead of the Mercedes-Benz of Gary Paffett, pitting on lap 1 and getting that undercut. So Pascal Wehrlein, Loic Duval, Joel Eriksson, the three drivers that have not yet been in for their mandatory pit stop. We have 17 cars running, having lost, of course, the car of Robin Freins. And let's hear what exactly. Was it the same electrical component failure, Robin Freins?
Robin, what a shame. This is your home race. You're trying so hard, and it's just not your day today. How unlucky is that? Is it an electrical problem again?
Yeah, similar as FP3 this morning. From one split second to the other, the car just shuts down and everything goes off. So, yeah, I mean, we don't know what the problem is yet. We try to figure it out. Qualifying, we had similar problems, not the kind we had in the race in FP3, but different ones. Seems like everything that went well yesterday went wrong today. So, but it's part of motorsport. Sometimes goes like that.
What a shame. Thank you very much, Robin. Back to you.
Thanks so much for catching up with Robin Freins then, who's very diplomatic about it, but he must be immensely frustrated as in comes Pascal Wehrlein and also Joel Eriksson, leaving the only driver to yet make a pit stop as Loic Duval stays out there. So a 7.3 second stop for Pascal Wehrlein, and Pascal Wehrlein being released back out now. Pascal Wehrlein going to be fairly well down the order. And bearing in mind, Pascal Wehrlein and Joel Eriksson, of course, going to be on cold tyres. Here comes Nico Muller then. He will be able to go all the way around the outside, presumably, of Pascal Wehrlein. But no, he won't, because Augusto Farfus makes it 3 abreast here, and there's not room for all 3 of them. And Augusto Farfus, the big beneficiary there. So, really good sighting from Augusto Farfus, who has put himself ahead of Nico Muller. As Nico Muller was trying to get past the returning Pascal Wehrlein car, Augusto Farfus just read the situation really, really well and managed to get past both of them. So great driving from Augusto Farfus. Really hope we see a replay of that, because there were 3 cars abreast. And good job from Augusto Farfus. Really opportunistic, but he took the opportunity. Here it comes. Tarzan turn then. Pascal Wehrlein running wide because he's on cold tyres. That pushes Nico Muller out to the outside. In the meantime, Augusto Farfus has put himself on the inside, which means that he's able to get ahead of Nico Muller, the car that was in front of him prior to that Pascal Wehrlein returning to the track. So, as I say, really good opportunistic move from Augusto Farfus, as now in comes Loic Duval. Pascal Wehrlein gets a black and white flag for forcing another car off the track. It certainly wasn't malicious, it was just he was on cold tyres, and the black and white flag is merely a warning. So Loic Duval is the last car to come in for the mandatory pit stop with 23 minutes of the race plus 1 lap remaining. Very quick time for Loic Duval then, and the Phoenix team doing a good job with him as they return his car back out on track. So we get back to the real race order, which is René Rast leading Gary Paffett, leading Paul di Resta. That's the way it looks. And there is Pascal Wehrlein, who now finds himself in P8. Oh, and Bruno Spengler is out, and that for sure has got to be a safety car. Where that car is situated in the gravel there, that is going to be a safety car. This could change the shape of this race now, because Bruno Spengler, his car has spat him into the gravel. He's never going to return from there. Safety car has been called for, as I predicted, and this is the worst possible news for René Rast and the best possible news for Gary Paffett. So Bruno Spengler then, who is out now, and that is between turn 6 and 7. No, it's not. Sorry, the GPS on the screen is wrong. It is at the Tarzan turn 1. Well, it was Jamie Green then who, once again on the inside of Bruno Spengler, was having a go, and he came from a long way back, locked up, made contact with the back end of the Bruno Spengler car, which spits him into the Tarzan turn gravel. Well, Jamie had spent lap after lap after lap behind Bruno Spengler, and the frustration was clearly too much. You see Timo Glock come into the pit lane. Just saw that from the top of that picture. Sure enough, we're on board with Timo Glock. Is this going to be a race retirement? He's been in for his mandatory stop. And that will be a great shame if Timo Glock is out. No, going to come in for another set of tyres whilst the safety car is out. So obviously no problems with the BMW. Just going to have another set of tyres on.
Up to the safety car.
That means that he is the only driver that's made 2 pit stops. And we'll try and catch up with the Crocodile now behind the safety car. And, of course, he's going to be on the freshest rubber. With 20 minutes remaining, I would think that the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. There's no reason for it to stay out there. Under investigation, that incident between Jamie Green and Bruno Spengler. Live championship update, 148 points to Gary Paffett and 121 for Paul di Resta if it stays this way for now. So this in replay. Some super shots of the Gary Paffett car, just generating some sparks off the bodywork, and some of the race fans enjoying the fare from DTM that has been on offer so far. This was Daniel Juncadella and Philip Eng. So no word yet when the safety car is coming in. Well, the Bruno Spengler car has been recovered. So there should be no reason why the safety car's time on the circuit is elongated. But of course we'll go to an IndyCar style restart where they'll go side by side, which so often really changes the shape of the race. So safety car's going to be out for at least 1 more lap, as we can see, as it crosses the timing line and completes another lap then, with just under 20 minutes plus 1 lap of the race remaining. Also in is Daniel Juncadella. So Daniel Juncadella making his way down the pit lane, also going for a fresh set of tyres. So it's Timo Glock, Daniel Juncadella, and Bruno Spengler has also been in as well, given that his tyres will be covered in gravel and sand following the excursion into the Tarzan turn runoff area. Safety car will be in at the end of this lap. The cars will line up side by side for the Indy style restart, and Gary Paffett will feel that perhaps here is an opportunity for him to regain that race lead. One of the features of the DTM we absolutely love is this IndyCar, Indy-style restart, where they go side by side. There is the restart grid on the left-hand side of your screen. It's going to be Rast and Paffett. Then it's going to be De Resta and Eng, Rockenfeller and Farfus, then Muller and Verlaine. And the rest of the order, as you can see, as they will line up side by side. So René Rast will be on the inside, Gary Paffett to the outside. Of course, the outside is the pole position side of the grid. They're making their way through turn number 10 now, as you can see. And then on the approach to turns 12 and 13, they will grid up side by side. So, some more excitement generated into this DTM race, the second race of 2 this weekend. The safety car from the Arie Luyendyk turn will peel off into the pit lane, and then it will be Gary Paffett alongside René Rast, Paul de Resta, Jamie Green, Mike Rockenfeller, Augusto Farfus. The cars could not be closer together. As René Rast and Gary Paffett head towards the timing line, there no centimetre given between either two of them. And Rast goes for it. Gary Paffett could lose out here to Paul de Resta, and that's always one of the disadvantages perhaps, but Gary Paffett carries more speed into the Tarzan turn, gets on the outside of René Rast now. If he can be brave and hold on to this outside line, but he runs out just a little bit wide, and René Rast is able to close the door. Meantime, Loic Duval, Marco Wittmann, Joel Eriksson, Timo Glock. Joel Eriksson is on the dirt. Nico Muller and Pascal Wehrlein having a go as well, and so too Lucas Auer. René Rast handled that restart perfectly. Paul de Resta was not able to get advantage of Gary Paffett being on the outside. So we return to racing then for the final 16 minutes plus 1 lap. Safety car brought out by Bruno Spengler, being turfed into the gravel, and there is Marco Wittmann clearly with a puncture. So that will be the end of the double champions race as he tries to nurse the car back and have that tyre replaced. So there, Marco Wittmann doing his level best to, as I say, just nurse that car back to the paddock area. You can see the sparks coming off the front end of the Marco Wittmann car. And this, oh, what a great onboard shot. We're on board there, and we can see bits flying off the cars as Jamie Green and Lucas Auer and Marco Wittmann. That's where the damage for Marco Wittmann was. So we complete a lap after the safety car then, and diving up the inside on Mike Rockenfeller there is Pascal Wehrlein, as he puts himself ahead of the Audi of Mike Rockenfeller for P6. So Mike Rockenfeller unable to defend against Pascal Wehrlein in the Mercedes-Benz then, who puts himself up. René Rast continues to lead from Gary Paffett, but the margin is only 7/10. Jamie Green once again out on the dirt. But bear in mind that we're on board with Gary Paffett now, who's going to have superior rubber, theoretically, towards the end of the race. And we're into the final 15 minutes, plus 1 lap. Lucas Auer with Timo Glock, and then it's Jamie Green there. And Jamie Green gets a drive-through penalty for that incident with Bruno Spengler, which saw Bruno Spengler out into the gravel and saw the safety car deployed. So in Marco Wittmann then, the tyres are changed, and he should be able to return from that, but of course his chance of earning points in this race absolutely destroyed. So the margin then between Rast and Paffett, merely 7/10 at the last timing sector. So Wittmann is back out again, of course on cold tyres, and will be plumb last. So here is Rast then. It'll be interesting to see what the margin is now between Rast and Paffett. Well, he's increased it by 1/10. But as I say, come the closing stages of the race, the final 5 minutes or so plus 1 lap, Gary should have superior grip on the tyres, although the tyres have worn really well here at Zandvoort. Here comes Jamie Green, to serve that drive-through penalty for his contact on Bruno Spengler, which saw Spengler spat out into the gravel at the Tarzan turn. And this is the reason Jamie Green got that drive-through penalty. He had tried to get past Bruno Spengler, and it was just frustration, I'm sure. There was a lock-up, so it may well have also been a mistake. So he certainly came from a long way back. So Philipp Eng, Augusto Farfus, and Pascal Wehrlein running in P4, 5, and 6. And Mike Rockefeller trying to join into that party as well. Race leader goes through. There is P2, Gary Paffett. So René Rast then 8/10 ahead of the British driver Gary Paffett, who in a rich vein of form this weekend in both qualifying and the racing, just ahead of his home race as we head to Brands Hatch on the 11th and 12th of August. Please do come down and join us at Brands Hatch for what will be a fantastic weekend of DTM race action. So 8/10 last time around. And, well, Rast has found another 10th. He's increased it to 9/10 now. One more 10th, and Gary Paffett will be out of DRS range on René Rast, though, as I've said all weekend long, DRS not having that much benefit here at the Zandvoort circuit, where it is so tricky to overtake. So René Rast then, who pitted on lap 1, and the strategy from the Rosberg team was to pit him before one lap had even been completed, which is what they did. And for the moment, it looks like that strategic move has been the right one, because he is leading the race and he's got 9/10 over Gary Paffett at the moment. The Mercedes-Benz has had fantastic pace, and so too has the driver of the number 2 and the number 3 car, come to that, Paul di Resta, who's running in P3. So it's Audi. Then it is Mercedes. The big loser is Philipp Eng, perhaps, who is, of course, qualified P2, but finds himself in P4 and therefore off the podium at the moment. But still 11 minutes plus 1 lap of the DTM race to unfold in front of us on this 4.3 kilometre Zandvoort circuit. So Paffett then, 2 pole positions, opens the DRS on the rear wing to try and get closer to René Rast, and does take a 10th out of the Audi, because the gap is reduced to just 8/10. And I just wonder whether in the final 5 or 6 minutes of this race, whether the tyre degradation on René Rast's car will be such that Gary Paffett, on much fresher rubber, will be able to make a move on the Audi driver. He's certainly got a 10th closer to René Rast now, and can continue to use the DRS now through the remainder of the 2 DRS zones on the track. 3 usages of DRS. Once you've opened it for the first use, you've got to use all 3, or you don't have to use them, of course. You can choose not to use them, but they will be voided from your allocation, if you like. Rast, of course, has got 12 DRS laps of availability, but he needs to be within a second of a car in front, and given that he's leading the race, of course, there's no one ahead of him, so he cannot use DRS to defend against Gary Paffett. So the live championship update on the right-hand side of your screen. If it stays this way, it will be 148 points for Gary Paffett, who go into his home round at Brands Hatch, leading the championship with Paul di Resta, P2. So 2 British drivers at the top of the championship as we head to Great Britain. Then it will be Timo Glock, Marco Wittmann, Edo Mortara, and Lucas Au. Still a lot to play for in the Drivers' Championship as we reach the halfway point of the season. DRS open once again on the back end of the Gary Paffett car, who takes another 10th out of René Rast. Are René Rast tyres beginning to age and deteriorate enough for Gary Paffett to be able to make a difference here? So he started the race P1 and is currently running P2. Augusto Farfus then has got problems in the shape of Pascal Wehrlein right behind him, and Nico Muller has got the hard-charging Edoardo Mortara pushing him as Muller runs a little bit wide. There is Edo Mortara, there's Lucas Au, Timo Glock, Joel Eriksson, And in comes Mike Rockenfeller for another set of tyres. So, number of drivers that have been in 2 times. And Mike Rockenfeller, another one of those as he makes his way back out from the Phoenix pit garage. Mike Rockenfeller back out on track now with Loic Duval going around him. So Mike Rockenfeller gingerly takes the car around the track now to generate the temperature into the tyres. The margin and gap between Rast and Paffett remains at 7/10. So on board with Mike Rockenfeller now as he goes through turn number 3 and starts the roller coaster ride to the back end of the circuit in the Mike Rockenfeller Audi. So the helicopter shot then, you can see having your tyres warm as Loic Duval has and up to temperature means he's able to get past Rocky as he returned easily and just get up the road. Well, René Rast has responded to Gary Paffett taking a 10th out of him by increasing by a 10th. So 7.5 minutes plus 1 lap. Nico Muller, Edo Mortara. Mortara on the outside of Nico Muller is squeezed just to the outside, but Edo will have the inside for the next turn if he can get through this one okay, but he didn't and ran wide. And that meant that the advantage goes back to Nico Muller, who had the run of the tarmac. So Edo Mortara trying very hard off the back of the Tarzan turn to get around the outside of Nico Muller. Muller has run out of DRS, as you can see, the red 0 indication on the left-hand side of your screen on the graphics. Means he's got no DRS availability to him now. We're looking back at the Lucas Auer car, and this was Edo Mortara then trying to get past Nico Muller. Muller able to hold his own there, and you can see the back end of, there was no contact between the two of them, the back end of the Mortara car just stepping out. I really don't think there was contact between the two of them. Although after saying that, it is being looked at by race control at the moment, so we will see. But from the angle I saw, don't think there was contact. So Rast with 8/10 as we look at some replays here of the action in this DTM race. And Edo Mortara then, will he line up Nico Muller once again? Nico Muller, who of course ended the race yesterday in the gravel and in the wall. And now Gary Paffett looks visibly closer to René Rast. Sure enough, he is 2/10 closer. The margin is down to 6/10 between the two of them as we're into the 6 minutes remaining of this race, plus 1 lap. Timo Glock then, of course, having taken a couple of pit stops and is on fresh rubber. Where is Timo Glock? He's in the points, P10. On board with Paffett then as he tries to reel in the Audi of the DTM champion, René Rast. So the Mercedes pace, as Gary has said, has been brilliant all weekend long, particularly in qualifying. And what was really interesting is that in qualifying, he said he wasn't able to better in the second part of qualifying. It was always the first qualifying run that was the best one for Paffett, that secured him 2 pole positions this weekend. And at the moment has secured him 1 win, and at the moment a P2. However, he is chasing down the Audi of René Rast ahead of him. So on board with Gary Paffett once again then. If he can make it 2 out of 2 across this weekend, he would go to Brands Hatch with a very, very comfortable lead in the Drivers' Championship going into his home race, which Robin Fryans will tell you it's always worth something being at your home race, although Robin Fryans full of disappointment from this weekend, having not finished this race due to an electronic problem with his car. So they round the Ari Lyondike turn and head towards the timing line once again. It was 6/10 last time around. Gary Paffett now reduces it by another 10th. It's down to 5/10 between the two of them. So said that the fight might come towards the end of this race. René Rast, having pitted on the opening lap, means his tyres are nothing like as fresh as Gary Paffett's. As we look on board the Mercedes pit wall there, the team chief is Uli Fritz. His drivers, Paffett and Wehrlein, at the moment are P2 and P6, but Gary Paffett really trying to reel in René Rast now. With 3 3/4 minutes left. Paul di Resta is just waiting to pick up the pieces, to be honest, should it all go horribly wrong for either of them. board with René Rast now, our race leader then. Arno Zenzen, the Audi Sport Team Rosberg team chief. There you can see Arno. Just quietly contemplating the position that his driver finds himself in now. It would be Arno then that was instrumental perhaps in the strategic call to bring René Rast in right at the start of the race and pit him on lap 1. Well, is that going to pay off or is it not going to pay off? So now Gary Paffett reels in the René Rast car. This is a brilliant splitter cam onboard shot then as we head towards the Tarzan turn. The gap is down to 4/10 between our race leader and P2. Gary Paffett with a slightly wider line into the Tarzan turn. This is Nico Müller. And Nico Müller and Edoardo Mortara. So Edo Mortara all over the back end of the Nico Müller car. This is the fight going on for P7 at the moment, and the fight is intensifying for P1 as well. So whichever way we look in the closing stages of this DTM race, a race punctuated by one safety car for the Bruno Spengler car being stuck in the gravel. All to pay for, all to play for right at the very end of the race. So Edo Mortara then, with the Mercedes-Benz continuing to chase Nico Müller. Edo Mortara with 6 laps left of DRS availability, so he'll have more DRS availability than he can even use in the race, but still got to find a way past the Nico Müller car. 4/10 was the margin between René Rast and Gary Paffett last time around. So you can see under braking, Paffett getting ever closer to René Rast as we go on board with him now. René Rast just looking a little bit more ragged on the exit of the turns because his tyres have had to do the longest distance of anyone. So uphill now through turn 12. And that leads into turn number 13. And will Paffett line him up for the Tarzan turn going into turn number 1? We're on board with Timo Glock now, chasing down Luca Sauer as the lead cars go through that turn number 1. For the moment, Rast is able to hold on to this race lead. Gary Paffett P2, Paul de Resta P3, Philipp Eng P4. Then it's Augusto Farfus, Pascal Wehrlein, Nico Müller, Edo Mortara, Luca Sauer and Timo Glock rounding out the points-paying positions. So Rast, Paffett and de Resta, 2 Mercedes-Benz versus the Audi, which is currently leading the race. So the clock is continuing to count down at the top left-hand side of your screen. Do bear in mind there is 1 lap after the race duration has finished. It's always 55 minutes plus 1 lap. And there is the man that is P2 at the moment, Gary Paffett. René Rast leading the race. They cross the Sector 2 line through turn number 10 now. We're going to have just 1 more racing lap when the cars cross the timing line. So it is now or never for Gary Paffett, who needs to get very close to the René Rast car to try and make a move going into the Tarzan turn. And I just wonder whether René Rast has done enough here. So DRS is open on the Gary Paffett Mercedes-Benz. This is the last lap. He's not close enough to René. Going into the Tarzan turn, he locks up a little. Paul de Resta gets a little bit closer. So Paffett has got to try and find a way now around the remainder of this 4.3 kilometer circuit. Can he find a way past René Rast? So the strategic ploy paid by Arno Zenzen and the Rosberg team for René Rast at the moment appears to be a good one, but we still have half a lap to do here at Zandvoort. René Rast is leading from Gary Paffett and Paul de Resta. He lapped on pit 1. He brakes now. So too does Gary Paffett, who gets closer to the René Rast car now. So through the sweeping and undulating turns of the Zandvoort circuit come our race leaders. And the gap of 5/10 between René Rast and Gary Paffett into turn number 10 then, the Audi S. And it's an Audi that is leading the pack. So it looks like Pavitt is going to bank points for P2. Certainly has tried to get ever closer to the Audi, but has been unable to do so. So René Rast then will head towards the timing line and take the win for Audi. René Rast wins from Gary Pavitt, P2. Paul de Resta, P3. And Philippe Eng, P4 with Augusto Farfus, Pascal Wehrlein, Nico Muller, Edo Mortara, Lucas Out, and Timo Glock rounding out the top 10. René Rast, race winner at Zandvoort. So the celebrations down there for René Rast. Oh no, Zenson looks relieved. It just looks relieved. So Philippe Eng then, he takes P4. So the winner of race 10 is René Rast. 150.7 kilometers that race. Felt like more than that, truthfully. And René did a very good job on very old tyres to hold on to that race lead, in my opinion. So you can see how happy they are down there at Audi Sport Team Rosberg. Arno Zenson then the team chief. And René Rast inside the car. So Rast making his way back to the Parc Ferme area. One of the great things about DTM is strategy can play a part, and with the mandatory pit stop and also the safety car restart. And there you can see that was the race-winning overtake when Gary Pavitt returned from his mandatory pit stop. René Rast had been out there and brought those tyres up to temperature, was able to go through. And I have to say, I was the one that said perhaps towards the end of the race, when there was more life left in the Gary Pavitt tyres, whether he would be able to reel in René Rast, but in the end he was unable to do so. And the checkered flag falling on the Audi driver then, who takes the win. And that's how he reacted. Arno, very, very happy. Win and lose together as teams, of course. And it was race winning this time around. Confirmation of the result then. René Rast taking the win from Gary Pavitt, Paul de Resta, Philippe Eng. Then it was Augusto Farfus, Pascal Wehrlein, Nico Muller, Edo Mortara, Lucas Out, and Timo Glock occupying the top 10 places. P11 was the Joel Eriksson car, then it was Daniel Juncker, Dea, Bruno Spengler, Jamie Green, Lloyd Duval, Mike Rockefeller, Marco Wittmann. And the unlucky one that we didn't complete the race was the local driver, Robin Freins. So René Rast then making sure he's got plenty of pickup as he heads back towards the Parc Ferme area. And he, the last one of the podium places to pull into Parc Ferme. In the driver standings then, 148 points for Gary Pavitt, 121 for Paul de Resta in P2. Two British drivers, P1 and P2, as we head off to Great Britain and Brands Hatch for the next round of DTM on the 11th and 12th of August. Please do come down and join us. So the cheers are up for René Rast. And congratulated there by Gary Pavitt. And René Rast then, with the team, celebrates. It's his first win of the season. And there is Arno Zensen. So, hasn't even taken a podium this season, has René. But he wins here in Zandvoort. It shows you how close the DTM is. So crash helmet is removed, drivers get weighed, and then hustled off up towards the podium. There is our race winner, René Rast, then. Focus, of course, of the world's media on the 1, 2, 3 as well. And Gary Pavitt having a conversation with Arno Zensen as well. And goes to the family. It's been far from a bad weekend for Pavitt, taking a win, 2 pole positions and a P2. And plenty of points on the board. 2 British drivers leading the Drivers' Championship. So René Rast then is the race winner for car number 33 and the Audi team. And there he punches the air with delight. The Rosberg strategy working. Gary Pavitt, though, he's banked some serious points this weekend and been very successful. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, Gary, you certainly collected your points this weekend, even though you didn't win today, but still you extended your lead further on. So are you still happy with the 2nd place?
Yeah, really happy. Obviously, I'd love to have won again today, but René was very fast, you know, and he stopped early, which obviously gave him the place. And although he had really old tyres, his pace was incredibly good. And at the end, I think I had a chance, but I didn't want to take too much. You have to risk a lot to pass around here. So I was happy to settle for 2nd today, and just so happy with the weekend. I mean, it's been incredible.
And coming to Brands Hatch as championship leader at the moment, half-time championship leader, so you've got to be absolutely happy. Yeah, I mean, the first half of the season's been incredible, and the car has just been amazing. The team have done an excellent job. And yeah, looking forward to the 2nd half of the season. Me too. Thank you very much, Gary, and we're going to grab René in just a bit, so back to you for the 2nd.
Okay, thanks very much. Yes, we will get hold of René Rast, but Gary Pavitt then going to the Brands Hatch round as championship leader with Paul di Resta, another British driver, P2. So great news indeed. So René Rast is the race winner. He made it work. What a strategy. Well done.
René, you certainly made it work today. Congratulations to an amazing victory. It's your first podium and first victory thus this season. And what didn't work out so well yesterday, today just worked out so well with your strategy.
Yeah, unbelievable. I cannot really believe it. We went for a very aggressive strategy, went in for the first lap. And then, thanks. And the car was very consistent and I could actually pass Gary virtually. And then actually after he came out of pit, I could pull away, but then the safety car came back again. And obviously I lost all the gap I had to Gary, and then the last 50 minutes, it was very hard. I mean, my tires were gone and Gary was pushing like crazy. He was using DRS, but I was, you know, could defend and obviously mega happy. You know, 2 years ago, I came here for a guest start, and now 2 years later, I won the race, so very, very delighted.
Absolutely brilliant job. So off you go onto the podium, René. Thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a very fair point that René made. Came here as a guest starter, of course, and then lo and behold, a couple of years later, he is winning the race. So well done, René Rast. He and Gary Pavitt and Paul di Resta will be up there for the podium. Really a sensible drive, probably from Gary Pavitt, as he says. You know, you're going to risk a lot to try and overtake here. Better off banking the points, and wonder whether that will come true towards the end of the season. Well, we have a great deal of racing still to come to enjoy between now and then, but for the moment at half-time, as Verena has said, Gary Pavitt is the half-time champion, and we'll be heading up to the podium momentarily, and we'll be seeing René Rast and Gary Pavitt and Paul di Resta up there on the podium. So the Audi flags are flying for their success here at Zandvoort. So Brands Hatch, as I've mentioned more than once, is the next round before Misano in Italy. And then we'll be off to the Nürburgring, the Red Bull Ring at Spielberg, and then, of course, the season finale at Hockenheim in the middle of October. So a lot of race action still to come from the DTM. And some brilliant racing that we have seen thus far this year. Even on a circuit like Zandvoort, where overtaking is really, really challenging and difficult, we've seen some very, very entertaining racing. So great stuff from the DTM. So the cars lined up in Parc Fermé. The Audi then sandwiched by between two Mercedes-Benz cars. The order: Rast, Paffet, De Resta off the podium, but finishing P4, Philipp Eng. Then it was Augusto Farfus. And for Augusto Farfus, coming good. It's his best result in the season so far. Pascal Wehrlein P6. Then it was Nico Müller, Edo Mortara, Lucas Au, and Timo Glock, who you will recall stopped twice and still managed to find himself in the points and take that final points position, P10. So René Rast then invited out onto the podium. And he will occupy the top step. P2 then the British driver Gary Paffett, who will be, after the team are represented, will be up on the podium. And there is Gary then. What a weekend he's had. A P1, 2 pole positions, and now a P2 as well. And Paul De Resta, let's not lose sight of the fact that he has been on the podium twice this weekend, a P2 and a P3. So National Anthem will play out now for René Rast. Well, it was a bit of a bit part anthem in the end. So trophy presentation time. René Rast receives his trophy. Patrick Huisman then makes the team's presentation. Jürgen Blomers from BP Aral making the trophy presentation to Gary Paffett. And Diana Eidberger making the trophy presentation to Paul De Resta. Almost like René is waiting for the all clear before the champagne, but of course the photographers demanding the trophies and drivers' photographs first before Paul De Resta really tries to go for it. Who's going to be quickest now? Paffett, I think. Of late, I have to say, the grid girls really have suffered at the hands of our DTM drivers in terms of being soaked in champagne. Well done to all three of them. René Rast, Gary Paffett, Paul De Resta then P1, 2 and 3. And they all take a significant slug after a hard-fought 55 minutes plus 1 lap. So, successful weekend here in Zandvoort with the weather playing its part, glorious weather conditions. big crowd here to enjoy the race action. And always a beach holiday type atmosphere here at Zandvoort. So bottles passed down to the teams to enjoy. And Paul de Resta has had a good weekend, 2 podium places. He's banked some points as well. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, Paul de Resta, you certainly banked some points this weekend, 2 podiums this weekend, and also it's your first podium here since 2010, so it's been a while, and then 2 podiums in 1 weekend. How happy are you?
I'm quite happy the weekend's over. We've been a bit unlucky in qualifying with traffic. Should have been P2 today. Gary did an excellent lap. I couldn't compete with that, but I had the slowest last sector because of an Audi got in the way. But listen, banking 2 podiums on a weekend's great. Yes, I lost ultimately to the top of the championship, but I think P2 we go away a bit safer, and ultimately we're at the mid-season point. We're still in this fight, still out there scoring points. Consistency is going to pay off, and yeah, let's get it on.
Exactly, we will do. Thank you so much, Paul. And back to the commentator.
Thank you. Yes, he makes a lot of sense. Consistency going to pay off, isn't it? And that's something that both Gary Paffett and Paul de Resta have had in bucketfuls in the season so far. Only halfway in the season, though. A lot to happen, a lot of racing still to come as we see some super shots then of those poor trophy girls. Didn't really deserve to be steam cleaned by champagne this afternoon, but you know what? I seem to enjoy it. So René Rast wins for Audi here at Zandvoort. Gary Paffett P2 and Paul de Resta P3. We've reached the halfway point in the DTM season so far, and we're heading off to Great Britain for the next round of the DTM. All the information, of course, at dtm.com. Do make sure you check out the website. And please, if you are a UK-based person, please come down and see us at Brands Hatch, because I can promise you 2 thrilling days of race action from these fantastic cars from Audi, BMW and Mercedes-Benz as the DTM makes its return to Brands Hatch in the UK. But from the seaside here at Zandvoort, for now, we've had 2 thrilling races this weekend, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event of DTM at Brands Hatch. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.
It certainly has been a phenomenal race weekend here in Zandvoort. We all had a lot of race action. We all worked on our tans, and we certainly enjoyed this race weekend. And now we're looking forward to Brands Hatch, which is going to be in 4 weeks. So we're having a little break, but we're hoping to see you then, because it's going to be exciting, that's for sure. And now here are the highlights of the race. Do enjoy and see you very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.